Starting to record now, and we're good.
Okay, so my name is Krista, Vitalis Charles, Crista Vitalis Charles.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Krista, can you share with us what do you feel makes a good teacher?
First, I think flexibility. I think I
think a good teacher.
Oh, sure. Okay, so I think a good teacher should have the capability to be flexible, to understand the development of children, to make sure they know kind of what's age appropriate, what's not, but also, again, that flexibility throughout the day I think is really important. I think day to day can change, especially with 4-year-olds, so I think it's really important to make sure that you can have some wiggle room within your day. If a child or children, a group needs something, I feel like being able to foster that need is very important. Yeah.
Well, so when you first began teaching, did you naturally have flexibility? How do you feel you acquire some of that flexibility of meeting children's needs?
Yeah, I think that's developed over time, and just like with
flexibility is.
I think that flexibility is definitely developed over time with multiple experiences. Just like it was with the kids, I think they need those experiences as teachers. We definitely need the experiences with children, a variety of situations. It's hard at first. I think as a new teacher, it can be really challenging to classroom management, to be able to regulate different behaviors and what's going on in the classroom. I think over time and, again, experiences and also patience, which is definitely a key when working with this age group.
Well, we noticed this morning during your second meeting, it was really difficult for one of the children to attend, and he was very distracted. But you managed to be able to stay composed and still be able to interact with the other children. Can you share a little bit about what you were thinking and feeling at the time?
Yeah, I think during meeting time, it's really appropriate to make sure that you're gauging the children's kind of temperament, and the ones who you can tell that are having a kind of a challenging time sitting. I think it's not to turn it into a power struggle of everybody sit on their bottoms, crisscross applesauce. That kind of is not my philosophy. I think it's really important to give them some wiggle room, allow them to kind of move, and some need to move in their bodies differently than others. But I think it's important to just keep checking in. And so I really wanted to, in that particular case, I really wanted to make sure that he knew I was also reading the book, reading the story, but then that I was also going to check in with him and ask him, come and join us, and trying to re-engage him. And also keep the flow. I think you're saying keeping composure. I think it's really important. I think we ourselves give off a vibe to the kids, and the calmer that we are, I feel like the calmer that they can be. I think they definitely can feel that. So I think the calmness of it and keeping that composure is really important, just to kind of set the tone for the kids. And for example, when we were, when I was trying to read the story, but I noticed other kids kind of getting distracted, I would try to just do little cues here and there of, I think there was a fishing wire in there, there was a string that was kind of getting his attention, so I would say, you know what, this kind of reminds me of something, and again, trying to re-engage and connect as much as possible.
How do you go about planning your environment?
Planning my environment, I think, is really important. I think it's actually the key to setting up the ambiance of the classroom, but then also the flow of the day. I really hope that when people come into the classroom, they feel like it's an extension of home, that it feels with the furniture and the layout, that they feel very comfortable. And the more comfortable the kids and the parents can be, they're going to have that same feel when they're learning. So I think that's really important. I also feel when it comes to setting up the tabletop jobs and things like that, I really want to go off of the interest of the kids. And kind of what that emergent curriculum piece.
So how would you define emergent curriculum, in your own words?
Yeah, emergent curriculum to me is really reading the kids and understanding what they're interested in, and then also providing some of those opportunities for them to explore. A variety of senses, obviously I think this is really good for this age group in particular. For example, last week we were reflecting on Earth Day. We had a big Earth Day celebration where we planted all outside, and somebody last week said, why don't we have plants in the classroom? And I said, that's a good question. I don't know why we have plants. What would we do? And so another child said, well, let's make an inside garden. So then I said, okay, well, what do we need? So we made a list of all the things that we need for an inside garden. Then I helped kind of provide those materials, and then today we followed through, and that was one of the job choices today, was to create that inside garden. So again, I think with the emergent curriculum piece is to make it meaningful, to make those connections, to really hear and listen to what the children are saying. And then they're going to be more focused on what are roots of the plants and different aspects of that curriculum. So.
Well, I noticed also there was one child when you were sharing the kind of the product of that process of the indoor garden. There was one child who got very, very upset. Yeah. And can you share that story a little bit and what happened? And
So at the circle time, I wanted to reflect on what we did in the morning, kind of, again, highlight all the work they did, and see kind of what their thoughts were about it. So I brought it to the rug, and we looked at it, and I think the kids were really proud about putting the plants in, but then I noticed he got really upset. He was really focused on a different job during job time and didn't have the opportunity to come over and do that. And in particular, he's a very sensitive child and really likes to be involved in those things. And I think he just thought he kind of missed out. So I wanted to make sure that he knew that I was empathetic. And then I said, I understand that you're really upset about it, but it's not finished. This is not a finished product. This is something that's going to keep on going, and that's okay. And in particular with that child, we've talked about helping him to self-regulate those emotions. And I don't know if you noticed, but he said, I just need to be upset for a minute. I just need to be upset here. And that's a real progress for us. For him to be able to say, I'm upset, I need this, is kind of what we really want them to get to. So I want to allow that time for him to be upset and then come back and say, all right, so now I notice you're upset about that, but look, today we can add to that project. So,
let's see. Now, the question was, can you think of an experience where children had conflict? But you noticed that this morning also that there was real conflict.
Yeah, there was.
So can you talk about that experience and share what you were thinking and feeling and responding to?
Yeah. So in times of conflict resolution, I really want the kids to first have an opportunity on their own to try, to attempt. We've worked all year on how to do those and what kind of tools to use and what messages to give. But I really want to give them space first to see if they can attempt to solve the problem on their own. When I kind of notice that it's really just I want this, and they're kind of butting heads, that's when I really want to step in and try to engage a little bit and say, I'm hearing this, and I'm hearing you say this. Now what do we do? Again, leaving an open-ended question. I feel like it's really important for them to try to start self-reflecting and to come up with their own solutions. It took a long time. This was one I feel in particular that took a really long time to kind of get to a point because they really just didn't see eye to eye. And I want to validate that that's okay, that we all don't think the same, that it's we're not always going to agree, but what kind of compromise can we come to? I think that one took a long time, but I also feel like we came back to it later, and I said individually to each kid, separately, and I said, I noticed that it was a really hard time trying to negotiate and trying to work that out with this other friend. What do you think about it? And so I asked each child that, and then one of the children said, okay, well, how about if I show him this plan and see if it works with him? And so then the other one came back, and I don't think he was totally satisfied, but he said, okay, that works. And then I think they started to build again.
So when you talk about children's interests, really knowing their interests, how does that happen? Is it a process of observation? Is it a formal process? What happens in terms of really getting to know who that child is?
Yeah, I think observation is key, and observing informally and formally, I think is again key to knowing and listening to what their interests are. So throughout the job time, when they're each individually working, and I think it's important for me to go around and kind of just listen, put an ear out, and say, okay, I noticed they're kind of talking about this